What happens when a CEO slips on a thrift store jacket, a curly brown wig, and a pair of scratched glasses, then walks into his own diner as a nobody, only to uncover a truth that could save or sink his company? Wyatt Langston, 34, hadn't planned on running Starlight Diner, the chain of old-school burger joints his father built from a single greasy counter in the 80s. 3 years ago, after his father's sudden death, Wyatt inherited a legacy he wasn't ready for: 24 locations, 600 employees, and a reputation for thick coffee mugs, juicy burgers, and cherry pie that once drew crowds from 3 counties over. But lately, the shine had worn off. Reviews were slipping, complaints were piling up, and a viral post on X about a botched order at the North Oak location, complete with a blurry video of a spilled milkshake and a frazzled waitress, had racked up 10,000 reposts in 48 hours. The caption read, "Starlight Diner?" More like Starlight Disaster. Wyatt sat at his father's old desk, the wood chipped at the edges, a faint coffee ring staining the corner. The headquarters office was quiet, too quiet, the kind of stillness that made his skin itch. He scrolled through the X post again, the comments a mix of nostalgia. Used to love their fries. And venom. Worst service ever. Never going back. He tossed his phone onto the desk and rubbed his temples. The reports from his district managers, led by Nolan Creed, were pristine: sales steady, staffing adequate, customer satisfaction within range. But Wyatt wasn't buying it. The numbers didn't lie, but they didn't tell the whole truth either. 2 veteran cooks had quit without notice last month, and customer foot traffic was down 12% across the board. The post-COVID economy didn't help: rising food costs, picky customers, and a labor market so tight he couldn't hire enough dishwashers. Meanwhile, competitors like Burger Blitz had rolled out slick apps for online ordering, leaving Starlight's paper menus and clunky registers looking like relics. Wyatt leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. He thought of his father, a man who'd greet customers by name, who'd slip a free slice of pie to a regular down on their luck. "People before product," his father used to say, scribbling it on the back of a menu one late night. Wyatt hadn't been in a Starlight dining room in years, not since he was a kid wiping down tables for pocket money. He'd spent the last 3 years buried in spreadsheets, trusting Nolan and his team to handle the floor. But the X post, the complaints, the resignations, they were a wake-up call. He needed to see the truth, not filtered through polished emails or corporate jargon. He needed to be a customer. He pulled up the schedule for the North Oak location, number 5 in the chain. It had the most complaints in the past 6 months: slow service, cold food, staff attitude. Perfect. Wyatt had never visited that store. His face wasn't plastered on company newsletters. After his father's death, he kept a low profile, letting Nolan and the regional team run operations. The staff at North Oak wouldn't know him from a random guy off the street. But just to be sure, he'd make it impossible to recognize him. In his apartment that evening, Wyatt stood in front of a cracked mirror, holding a curly brown wig he'd bought from a costume shop. It was cheap, slightly itchy, but convincing enough. He added a fake beard, trimmed to look scruffy but not cartoonish, and swapped his tailored blazer for a faded denim jacket from a thrift store. A pair of wire-rimmed glasses, lenses plain. Framed scuffed hid the sharp lines of his face. He slouched, softening his usual upright posture, and practiced a slower, more casual walk. He barely recognized himself. Good. If he was going to see the real Starlight Diner, he couldn't look like the guy who signed the paychecks. Tuesday afternoon, just past 2 p.m. Wyatt pushed open the door to the North Oak Starlight Diner. The midday lull should have been calm, but the place felt off. The air smelled of fryer oil and something faintly burnt, maybe toast left too long in the toaster. The jukebox blared a country song, loud enough to drown out conversation. A teenage hostess, her name tag reading Chloe, barely glanced up from her phone as she grabbed a menu. Booth or counter? She mumbled, leading him to a booth near the kitchen without waiting for an answer. The table was sticky, a smear of dried ketchup along the edge. Wyatt slid into the seat, his eyes scanning the room. A few families sat scattered across the dining area. An older couple shared a milkshake, and two guys in hoodies typed furiously on laptops. The staff moved, but not with purpose. A waiter, in a black apron, juggled 4 plates, nearly dropping one. Another leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone. From the kitchen, a woman's voice snapped. "Table 8's been waiting 20 minutes, Ryan." Wyatt raised an eyebrow. This wasn't the Starlight his father built. His server, a young woman with a name tag reading Tessa Rowan, approached. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her eyes carried the kind of tired that came from too many double shifts. "Sorry about the table," she said, wiping it down with a rag. "We're down 2 people today. One called out, another quit. Mid-shift yesterday." She forced a smile. "What can I get started for you?" "Coffee black." "Pancakes, side of bacon?" Wyatt said, keeping his voice light, unassuming. "That happen a lot. People quitting like that." Tessa hesitated, her rag pausing on the table. "Lately, yeah. It's been rough." She didn't elaborate, just scribbled his order and walked away. Wyatt watched her go. She was honest at least, but worn thin. He wondered how many others felt the same. From his booth, he had a clear view of the register and the open kitchen pass. The staff moved like they were underwater, slow, disjointed. A cook slammed a spatula against the grill, muttering. The hostess, Chloe, was back on her phone. Wyatt sipped his coffee when it arrived, bitter and lukewarm, and made mental notes. This wasn't just a bad day. This was a pattern. Then he saw her, a mother, maybe 30, with 2 kids trailing behind her. The boy, about 8, wore a school uniform that looked a size too small, the cuffs fraying. The girl, younger, clung to her mother's hand. They slid into a corner booth, and the mother pulled out her purse, counting bills with quick, anxious fingers. She counted again, her lips moving silently. Wyatt's chest tightened. He'd seen that look before years ago, when his own mother counted change for groceries after his father lost a job. A waiter approached their table, not Tessa, but someone else. His name tag read Jasper Vale. He was tall, lean, with short, dark curls and a quiet way of moving, like he didn't want to take up too much space. Jasper knelt by the table, pointing at the menu, his voice low but warm. The mother whispered something, her face flushed with embarrassment. Jasper shook his head. Gently. "Don't worry about it," he said. "Just loud enough for Wyatt to catch. I've got you guys today. Order what you want." The mother's eyes glistened, and she nodded, wiping them quickly. Wyatt watched, his coffee forgotten. Jasper walked to the register, pulled out his own wallet, and handed over a few crumpled bills. No announcement, no fuss. He just paid, then went back to clearing a table like it was nothing. Wyatt's hands tightened around his mug. This guy, this random waiter, was doing what Starlight was supposed to be about. And yet, something told Wyatt the system, the managers, the reports, the culture was failing people like Jasper. He leaned back, the vinyl booth creaking. The viral X-post, the complaints, the lukewarm coffee, it all pointed to a deeper rot. But Jasper's quiet act of kindness was a spark, a reminder of what his father had built. Wyatt's jaw tightened. He wasn't leaving North Oak until he understood exactly what was broken and how to fix it. Wyatt Langston sat in the corner booth of the North Oak Starlight Diner, his untouched pancakes growing cold. The curly brown wig itched against his scalp, and the thrift store jacket smelled faintly of mothballs, but he barely noticed. His eyes darted across the dining room, cataloging every detail like a detective piecing together a crime scene. The fryer hissed, spitting oil that left a greasy sheen in the air. The jukebox had finally quieted, but the clatter of plates and the low hum of frustrated customers filled the void. A family of 4 at table 6 waited 10 minutes for a water refill. A cook in the back barked at a prep hand for slicing onions. Too slowly. Tessa Rowan, Wyatt's server, moved with the efficiency of someone running on fumes. Her smile strained as she apologized to a couple for a wrong order. This wasn't just a bad shift. This was a diner teetering on the edge. Wyatt's coffee mug sat heavy in his hands, the liquid inside now a tepid sludge. He'd chosen this booth for its view close enough to the kitchen pass to hear the staff, far enough from the register to blend into the background. His disguise, a calculated mix of wig, fake beard, and scuffed glasses, made him invisible. No one here knew Wyatt Langston, the CEO who'd inherited Starlight Diner 3 years ago. His father's face had been the public one, grinning and old. Promotional photos, shaking hands with regulars. Wyatt, by contrast, was a ghost in his own company, a name on emails and paychecks. That anonymity was his weapon now. He needed the truth raw, unfiltered, straight from the floor. The truth wasn't pretty. Tessa had mentioned they were down 2 staff members, 1 sick, 1 quit mid-shift yesterday. Wyatt had pressed her lightly, keeping his tone casual. That normal? People just walking out? Her hesitation told him more than her words. Lately, yeah, it's been tough. She'd scurried off before he could dig deeper, but her exhaustion was a neon sign. The other staff weren't much better. A waiter named Ryan, lanky and distracted, scrolled on his phone by the soda machine. A cook slammed a spatula against the grill, muttering about lazy front-of-house kids. The teenage hostess, Chloe, hadn't looked up from her screen since. Wyatt walked in. The only rhythm in the place was chaos. Then he saw it, a moment that cut through the noise like a blade. In the far corner booth, the mother Wyatt had noticed earlier sat with her 2 kids. The boy, in his too small uniform, picked at a napkin, while his younger sister colored on a placemat. Their mother counted bills again, her fingers trembling as she stacked quarters. Wyatt's throat tightened. He knew that math, the kind where every cent was a choice between dinner and gas. He'd seen his own mother do it years ago, when his father's first diner nearly went under. A waiter approached their table, not Tessa, but the one Wyatt had overheard earlier, the one with short dark curls and a quiet step. His name tag read, Jasper Vale. He was maybe 28, lean, with a face that looked like it smiled easily but wasn't smiling now. Jasper knelt beside the booth, his voice low, pointing at the menu like he was guiding the kids through a treasure map. The mother whispered something, her cheeks flushing. Wyatt leaned forward, straining to hear. Jasper shook his head gently. "Don't worry about it," he said, his tone steady but warm. "I've got you guys today. Order what you want." The mother's eyes welled up, and she nodded, wiping them with the back of her hand. The boy looked up, confused but hopeful, and whispered something about a cheeseburger. Wyatt's grip on his mug tightened. Jasper stood, walked to the register, and pulled out his own wallet. He handed over a small stack of bills, his own money, not the diner's, then slipped the wallet back into his pocket. No fanfare, no glance around to see if anyone noticed. He just went back to clearing a table, stacking plates with the same quiet focus. Wyatt stared, his pancakes forgotten. In a place falling apart at the seams, this guy, this nobody waiter, was the only one acting like Starlight Diner still meant something. The moment was shattered by a shout from table 9. 20 minutes for a burger? You kidding me? A man in a flannel shirt stood, his voice cutting through the dining room. Tessa hurried over, apologizing, but the man wasn't having it. He pulled out his phone, filming as he ranted. "This is going online," he snapped. Starlight's a joke now. Chloe, the hostess, froze, her phone forgotten. The cook in the back yelled something unintelligible. Wyatt's stomach sank. He knew where this was headed. A second viral X-post, another blow to the company's crumbling reputation. The man stormed out, leaving his half-eaten fries and a growing murmur among the other customers. Wyatt's eyes flicked back to Jasper. He was wiping down a table, unfazed, as if the outburst hadn't happened. But Tessa looked shaken, her hands trembling as she cleared the man's plates. Wyatt wanted to stand, to say something, but he forced himself to stay put. He wasn't Wyatt Langston right now. He was just a guy in a bad wig, watching his father's legacy fray. The front door swung open, and a man in a crisp white shirt strode in. Wyatt recognized him instantly. Nolan Creed, the district manager. Nolan was in his late 30s, hair gelled back, moving like he owned the place. He barely glanced at the staff, his eyes fixed on a tablet as he headed for the back office. Wyatt's jaw tightened. Nolan's reports had painted North Oak as stable, with minor staffing adjustments. Stable? Wyatt could feel the tension in the room, the kind that came from overworked people and absent leadership. He stood, pretending to head for the restroom, and lingered near the kitchen hallway. Nolan's voice carried from the office, sharp and clipped. "Numbers are down again," he said to the kitchen lead, a burly man named Greg. "If Jasper keeps wasting time chatting up tables, he's out next month." "We need speed, not sob stories," Greg grunted in agreement. "Kid's too soft, always playing hero." Wyatt's fists clenched in his pockets. Jasper, the one person here doing something right, was on the chopping block. He slipped back to his booth, his mind racing. He thought of his father, the man who'd built Starlight on handshakes and free coffee refills, who'd once paid a single mother's tab out of his own pocket. Wyatt had let that spirit slip away, buried under spreadsheets and Nolan's glossy lies. His hand shook slightly as he picked up his fork, not because he was hungry, but because he needed something to ground him. He watched Jasper again. The waiter was refilling an elderly couple's coffee without being asked, his movements quick but gentle. He picked up a crayon a kid had dropped and handed it back with a grin that made the toddler giggle. Every action was small, deliberate, human. Wyatt pulled out his phone, opened the employee files, and searched for Jasper Vale. 28, waiter, 2 years with the company. No write-ups, solid customer feedback. Nothing flashy, just steady. Wyatt stared at the screen, then set it down. The diner's chaos swirled around him, plates clattering, a customer complaining about cold eggs, Tessa rushing to fix another order. The X-post from the angry customer was probably live by now, racking up views. Wyatt could feel the weight of it all, the failing stores, the viral disasters, the staff stretched to breaking. But Jasper's quiet act of kindness burned brighter than the noise. It was a crack of light in a crumbling foundation, a reminder of what Starlight could be. Wyatt left a tip, more than he'd planned, and walked out to his car. He sat behind the wheel, the wig still itching, and stared at his hands. They were steady now, but his chest felt tight, like something was uncoiling inside him. He thought of his father's words scrawled on that old menu. People before product. He'd failed that promise. But he wasn't done yet. Tomorrow he'd come back, not as a stranger, but as Wyatt Langston. And he'd start with Nolan Creed. The morning sun cut through the blinds of Wyatt Langston's apartment, casting sharp lines across the hardwood floor. He stood in front of the mirror, the curly brown wig and fake beard gone, replaced by his own clean-shaven face and close-cropped hair. The thrift store jacket hung in the closet, swapped for a gray button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His posture was straight now, no slouch, no pretense. He didn't look like the CEO of Starlight Diner. not the glossy kind you'd see in a corporate headshot, but he looked like himself, and that was enough. Today, he wasn't hiding. Today, he was taking back his father's legacy. Wyatt drove to the North Oak Starlight Diner, the same location he'd visited yesterday in disguise. The viral X-post from the angry customer had gained traction overnight. Now at 15,000 reposts with comments piling up. Starlight's gone downhill since the old man died. Took 30 minutes for a burger. Never again. Wyatt's jaw tightened as he parked. The post was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was deeper lazy management, overworked staff, a culture that had forgotten what Starlight stood for. He'd seen the proof yesterday. Tessa Rowan, stretched thin but kind. Jasper Vale, paying for a struggling family's meal out of his own pocket. And Nolan Creed, the district manager, dismissing it all as sob stories. Wyatt's hands gripped the steering wheel. He'd start with Nolan. The diner's door buzzed as Wyatt stepped inside at exactly 9:12 a.m. The breakfast rush was winding down, but the air still carried the heavy scent of bacon grease and burnt toast. Tessa was sorting silverware behind the counter, her eyes flicking up briefly, a flicker of recognition passing over her face, maybe from his posture, maybe from something else. She didn't say anything. Jasper Vale was near the soda machine, polishing trays with a rag, his movements steady and unhurried. The hostess, Chloe, glanced at Wyatt, then blinked twice. Can I help you?" "I'm here to speak with your manager," Wyatt said, his voice low but firm. "Not the floor supervisor, the district manager." Chloe hesitated, pointing toward the back hallway. "He's in the office, but he's not." Wyatt was already moving, his steps deliberate. He passed Tessa, who paused, her brow furrowing, as if trying to place him. Jasper didn't look up, focused on his task. The kitchen clattered behind the pass, a cook shouting about a missing order. Wyatt knocked once on the office door, then pushed it open. Nolan Creed sat in a padded chair, tapping at his tablet, his gelled hair catching the fluorescent light. He looked up, annoyed. "Who?" "I'm Wyatt Langston," Wyatt said, letting the words land like a stone. "I own this company." The silence was immediate, heavy. Nolan's tablet froze mid-swipe, his face paling. "Mr. Langston, I didn't know you were." He stood, smoothing his shirt, his voice tight. "What's this about?" Wyatt didn't sit. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I was here yesterday, Nolan, as a customer. I saw how this place runs. I saw a waiter pay for a family's meal out of his own pocket. I saw staff stretched to breaking. And I heard you say that waiters wasting time on sob stories." Nolan's mouth opened, then closed. I manage 5 locations. I can't babysit every table. We're hitting targets. Your targets are lies," Wyatt cut in. "Customer complaints are up. Staff turnover is through the roof. That X-post last night? That's on you. I need you out of this store in 20 minutes. Don't speak to the staff. Don't make a scene. Don't come back unless I call you." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "You're not even going to hear my side?" "You've had 3 years to show me your side," Wyatt said, raising a hand to stop him. "HR will follow up. Go." Nolan stood slowly, his face a mix of shock and defiance. He grabbed his tablet, muttered something under his breath, and brushed past Wyatt, his shoulder clipping the doorframe. Wyatt didn't watch him leave. He turned, stepping back into the dining room where the bustle had slowed. Plates clinked. The fryer hissed, but every eye was on him. Tessa stood frozen, a fork in her hand. Jasper had stopped polishing, his rag dangling. The cook leaned around the heat lamp, squinting. Wyatt stepped to the center of the floor. "Can I have everyone's attention for a moment?" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The chatter died. Even the kitchen quieted. "My name is..." Wyatt Langston. I own this company. My father built it. Some of you might have known him. The silence deepened. An older server, her name tag reading Ellen, dropped a pen. The clatter loud in the stillness. I was here yesterday. Wyatt continued, pointing to the booth in the corner. I sat there. I watched how this place runs. I saw some things that need fixing, things I let slide for too long. But I also saw something remarkable. His eyes found Jasper, who was staring at the floor, his hands tight on the rag. I saw one of you go out of your way to help a struggling family. No cameras, no attention, just kindness. The room shifted. Tessa's eyes widened slightly. Ellen whispered something to the dispensed. Jasper, come here. Jasper hesitated, then stepped forward, his face guarded. Wyatt could feel the weight of every stare. I know you don't like recognition, Wyatt said, his voice softening. But what you did yesterday, paying for that family's meal, reminded me what this place is supposed to stand for. You represented Starlight better than most of the people at the top, including me. Jasper's voice was quiet. I just tried to help. You did more than that, Wyatt said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. This is a letter of reassignment. Effective immediately, you're promoted. I want you training our new hires across the region: hospitality, empathy, service, the things you do naturally. I want that standard everywhere. Jasper blinked, taking the paper like it might burn him. I'm not a manager. You don't need to be, Wyatt said. You just need to be you. A few claps broke out, tentative at first, then louder. Ellen whistled low. Tessa's tired eyes softened, a faint smile breaking through. Wyatt turned to the staff. Changes are coming. I'll be visiting every location. No warnings, no emails. If you've been carrying more than your share, I see you. If you've been hiding behind titles, that ends today. He let the words settle, then nodded once, and walked out. Outside, the air was cool, the sky a pale gray. Wyatt stood on the sidewalk, watching cars roll past the strip mall. For the first time in months, he felt something loosen in his chest. His phone buzzed a char, confirming Nolan's history of vague references and quiet exits from past jobs. Wyatt wasn't surprised. He'd deal with it later. For now, he had another diner to visit. Back inside, Tessa approached Jasper, who was still holding the letter, his eyes distant. You knew he was watching yesterday? She asked. Jasper shook his head. No idea. She exhaled, a half laugh. Well, damn, they didn't say more. The diner hummed back to life, but something felt different. A spark, faint but real. The Westfield Starlight Diner sat on the edge of a sprawling industrial park, its neon sign flickering faintly against the late afternoon sky. Wyatt Langston pulled into the parking lot just after 5 p.m., the dinner rush already swelling. His gray button-up was creased from a day of driving, but he didn't care. The weight of yesterday's confrontation at North Oak firing Nolan Creed, promoting Jasper Vale, still lingered, a mix of resolve and unease. The viral X post about North Oak had plateaued at 20,000 reposts, but the comments were brutal. And Wyatt knew one bad shift at another location could spark a new firestorm. He wasn't here to play tourist. He was here to see if the rot he'd found at North Oak was spreading. Wyatt stepped inside. No wig, no disguise. He didn't need to hide anymore. The air hit him: first grilled onions, floor cleaner, and something metallic from the kitchen vents. The place was packed. A wait list snaked by the front door, and a young host with braces and a clipboard, named Dylan, tried to placate a family of 6. It'll be about 20 minutes, he said, his voice cracking under pressure. A child wailed behind him, and someone's phone blared a game show jingle. Wyatt moved past the crowd and took a seat at the counter, blending into the chaos. The diner felt like a pressure cooker. Servers darted between tables, trays wobbling. A woman in her 50s, her name tag reading Maris Quinn, poured coffee for a trucker in a weathered jacket. She moved with quiet efficiency, her eyes tired but sharp, catching every detail. Wyatt watched her refill a cup without being asked, then wipe a spill before it spread. She was good, better than good. But the rest of the staff were drowning. A young server with a limp, sweating through his collar, covered 4 sections at once. Tables. Waited too long. 2 groups walked out, muttering about the service. No one stopped them, no apologies, no recovery. A man in a red vest emerged from the back. Caleb Warwick, the manager, according to the schedule Wyatt had checked. Caleb's eyes scanned the floor, not with concern, but with irritation. Double seat. Tables 10 and 12. He barked at Dylan, and get the servers out of the break room. He didn't slow his stride, disappearing back into the office. Wyatt's jaw tightened. Caleb was the opposite of what Starlight needed, a manager who led by shouting. Not doing. Wyatt leaned toward Maris, who was rinsing a mug behind the counter. "What's the deal with the manager?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. Maris glanced up, sizing him up for a second. Her hands kept moving, steady and practiced. "Caleb? Clocks in late, hides in the office, only comes out to yell. Doesn't care about helping. Just wants the numbers to look good." She paused, then added, "You a regular?" "Nah," Wyatt said. "Just passing through." She nodded, like she'd heard it before, and went back to her work. Wyatt's eyes narrowed. Maris's words confirmed what he'd suspected. Caleb was another Nolan, coasting on authority while the staff burned out. He watched the floor for another 20 minutes, noting the patterns. The server with the limp, named Ethan, was running ragged, apologizing to a table for cold fries. Dylan, the host, fumbled with the waitlist, missing a chance to seat a couple, who left in frustration. Caleb didn't reappear. The diner was a machine breaking down, and no one was fixing it. Wyatt's phone buzzed a notification from X. A new video had surfaced, this one from Westfield. It showed Caleb berating Ethan in front of customers, his voice loud enough to turn heads. The caption read, "Starlight Diner manager screams at disabled employee. This place is a mess." The post was gaining traction, already at 5,000 reposts. Wyatt's stomach churned. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was a public relations disaster, and it was on him for letting it fester. He stood, leaving a tip for Morris, and drove to a nearby coffee shop to think. He pulled up Caleb's employee file on his phone. Hired 18 months ago. Bounced between 6 restaurants in 4 years. No formal write-ups, but vague references from past employers. Wyatt frowned. Why hadn't HR caught this? He fired off a text to his HR lead, demanding a full review of Caleb's hiring process. Something wasn't adding up. The next morning, Wyatt called a meeting at headquarters. No store-level managers, just regional staff. The conference room was stark white walls, a long table, and a single yellow legal pad in front of Wyatt. No PowerPoint, no spreadsheets. He stood, his voice calm but unyielding. "We've got a culture problem. It's not scheduling software or inventory. It's us. I've seen 3 stores in 2 weeks. I've seen customers walk out, staff ignored, and managers treating leadership like a free pass to do nothing. I've also seen someone pay for a family's meal out of their own pocket because they cared." The room shifted, chairs creaking. A woman from operations, Lisa, leaned forward. "What did you see, exactly?" "I saw a manager at Westfield yell at a server in front of customers," Wyatt said. "I saw a staff covering multiple sections while he hid in the office. And I saw a woman named Maris Quinn keeping the place together despite it all." He paused, letting it sink in. "We're not running a brand. We're running a promise. If you don't believe that, you're in the wrong room." A man from logistics raised his hand. What do you want us to do? Start with every manager's schedule, Wyatt said. Who's working? Who's hiding? Then I want exit interviews from every employee who's left in the last year. I want patterns, not excuses. And the stores that are doing well, study them. Not just metrics, attitude, behavior, tone. Lisa spoke again. What about Caleb Warwick at Westfield? Wyatt's eyes hardened. I'm handling him. By Thursday, HR returned with a folder on Caleb. His references were phone calls, not written, and the hiring manager who'd signed off was a friend of Nolan Creed's. No one had checked beyond the surface. Wyatt closed the folder. Suspend. Him. Replace him with someone internal. I'll announce it myself. That afternoon, Wyatt drove back to Westfield. The diner was quieter now, the lunch rush fading. He gathered the staff in the backroom servers, dish hands, a prep cook with headphones around his neck. Caleb stood in the corner, arms folded, his face tight. Wyatt didn't look at him. I'm Wyatt Langston, owner of Starlight Diner. Effective today, Caleb Warwick is no longer your manager. You'll have interim guidance until we promote from within. Caleb scoffed. You just walk in and fire people? No context? I got context, Wyatt said, his voice steady. I asked your team. I watched their work. I listened to customers. That's more than your reports ever gave me. Caleb's mouth tightened. This is ridiculous. You're done here, Wyatt said. HR will contact you. Caleb stormed out, muttering, the door slamming behind him. The room was silent, the hum of the fridge the only sound. Wyatt faced the staff. I know trust takes time. I'm not here to play savior. I'm here to clean up what I let fester. That's on me. The prep cook, a wiry guy named Leo, raised his hand. You really own this place? I do, Wyatt said. And it's time I acted like it. Maris Quinn, her apron dusted with flour, crossed her arms. What happens to us now? You get a say, Wyatt said. Starting Monday, every store gets a round table. No managers, just staff and a facilitator. I want your feedback, unfiltered. Ethan, the server with the limp, spoke up, his voice hesitant. Will anything actually change? Wyatt nodded. If it doesn't, I'll shut it all down. I won't run a company that runs people into the ground. The staff exchanged looks, some skeptical, some hopeful. Wyatt left them to process, stepping. Outside, the air smelled of asphalt and fresh bread from the diner. He stood by his car, the ex-post about Caleb still burning in his mind. He'd put out one fire, but others were smoldering. Maris Quinn's quiet competence, Ethan's grit despite Caleb's cruelty, they were the sparks he needed to keep going. But he also knew the pushback was coming. Nolan's allies were still out there, and not everyone would welcome change. The downtown training facility for Starlight Diner was unassuming, a concrete block, tucked between a vape shop and a laundromat, its windows streaked with dust from passing traffic. Inside, however, the space was alive. Glass walls reflected. Fluorescent light. The air carried the faint tang of lemon cleaner and fresh coffee. And a folding sign near the entrance read, Welcome, Team Leads, Orientation Room. Jasper Vale stepped through the door just after 8 a.m., his worn sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. He wore his usual denim jacket, the cuff frayed, but his posture was different, straighter. Not from confidence, but from the weight of what Wyatt Langston had asked of him. He wasn't a manager, never wanted to be. Yet here he was, tasked with designing a training program to teach new hires what he did naturally. Care. Jasper had been skeptical when Wyatt called him 2 weeks ago. The CEO's voice steady on the line. You're not training them to be robots, Wyatt had said. Teach them what you do, how you listen, how you see people. That's what Starlight's supposed to be. Jasper had stared at the letter of reassignment, still folded in his walls. Pocket and agreed. though doubt gnawed at him. He'd never led a meeting, never stood in front of a room. But he'd seen enough bad shift servers snapping at each other, customers ignored, managers like Nolan Creed or Caleb Warwick hiding behind clipboards to know what didn't work. Maybe that was enough. He passed the kitchenette where bagels and paper cups were laid out, a small gesture for the staff arriving today. A young woman in a gray sweater, clipboard in hand, looked up. Jasper Vale? He's waiting upstairs. Jasper nodded, climbing the stairs to a glass-walled meeting room. Wyatt sat at a long wooden table, a yellow legal pad, and a closed laptop in front of him. The highway outside blurred with red and white taillights. Wyatt didn't look up as Jasper entered. "You sure you want me here?" Jasper asked, his voice low. Wyatt met his eyes. "I didn't ask for anyone else." Jasper pulled out a chair, sitting with his hands clasped loosely. "I've never run a training program." "You've run tables during a lunch rush while covering for 2 people, Wyatt said. "You've handled upset customers without passing the buck. You've kept your integrity when no one was watching. That's what I care about." Jasper leaned back, unconvinced. This kind of thing usually goes to someone with a title. "And how's that been working for us?" Wyatt slid the legal pad across the table. "Help me build something real. Watch the sessions. Give feedback. If the trainers sound like they've never worked a floor shift, call it out. If the content's empty, tear it down. I don't want polish. I want truth." Jasper tapped the table, his fingers brushing the blank page. "No one's ever asked me for that before." "They should have," Wyatt said, his voice steady but not soft. Jasper nodded, the weight settling in. He wasn't sure he could do this, but he'd try. By the end of the week, they'd chosen 3 stores for a pilot program. One in a college town buzzing with students, one near the freight yards where truckers stop for cheap coffee, and one in a suburb with the highest turnover in the chain. Each had a mix of new hires, veterans, and employees who'd nearly quit. Wyatt visited each personally, no disguise, no speeches. At the freight yard location, a dishwasher named Finn Carver cornered him outside the walk-in freezer. Finn was short, broad-shouldered, with a rasp like he'd smoked too long. "You're the guy making all this change?" he asked. Eyes narrowed. Wyatt nodded. "That's me." "Don't screw it up," Finn said. "We've seen big talkers coming. Go. They promise, then disappear when it gets hard." Wyatt didn't blink. "Fair. I don't want credit. I want results." Finn grunted and walked off, leaving Wyatt with a flicker of respect for the man's bluntness. Back at headquarters, Wyatt converted a corner of the second floor into a feedback room. No suggestion box, but a real space for one-on-one sessions. Anonymous interviews, recorded feedback sent straight to his desk, unfiltered by managers. Jasper started coming in 3 times a week, still in his sneakers and frayed jacket, but his voice carried a new certainty. During a session with a new facilitator, a woman with 7 years in HR named Karen, he spoke up. "You can't teach empathy in a lecture. You show it by doing. Coach it in the moment." Karen nodded slowly. "So how do we train for that?" "Put them on the floor," Jasper said. "Pair them with someone who listens before they talk. Let them see what right looks like, then practice." Karen scribbled notes, her skepticism softening. The pilot program wasn't smooth. At the college town diner, a veteran server named Carla resisted, calling the training a waste of time. She'd worked at Starlight for a decade and saw no need for touchy-feely nonsense. Jasper didn't argue. Instead, he shadowed her during a shift, quietly pointing out how her rushed tone made a customer flinch. "It's not about being soft," he told her later. "It's about making them want to come back." Carla didn't reply, but she started lingering at tables, asking questions instead of barking orders. At the suburb location, 2 managers were reassigned after Wyatt's team uncovered discrepancies. One had fudged staff hours to boost efficiency metrics. The other had berated a busboy in front of customers, echoing Caleb Warwick's behavior. Wyatt didn't hire outsiders to replace them. Instead, he promoted Maris Quinn from Westfield, who'd been prepping vegetables and running the register without complaint for years. She didn't ask for a raise, but Wyatt gave her one, along with decision-making authority as a team lead. Maris took the role quietly, her flour-dusted apron unchanged, but her eyes sharper, like she'd been waiting for a chance to prove herself. Wyatt started weekly calls with small employee groups. No agenda, just time to talk. At first, they were guarded. A server from the freight yard diner, a woman named Rosa, broke the ice in the third week. "Too many rules don't help anyone," she said. "If I can fix a customer's problem in 30 seconds, why do I need 5 approvals?" Another, a cook who'd been with Starlight 6 years, added, "No one's ever asked what I think. Ever." Wyatt listened, took notes, didn't interrupt. By Friday, he rolled out the first changes. Fewer approvals for comps, more autonomy. For shift leads, and no more split shifts that burn people out. Small, measurable, real. The X platform was quieter now. The Westfield video fading as positive reviews trickled in, a customer praising Maris's service, another noting a cleaner dining room. But Wyatt knew the fight wasn't over. A group of Nolan's old allies, regional managers who liked the old way, sent a passive-aggressive email to the board, questioning Wyatt's hands-on approach. He ignored it, but the tension lingered. At the College Town Diner, a new hire quit after a week, citing low pay in a tight job market. Wyatt couldn't fix everything overnight, but he could start. Jasper, meanwhile, was finding his rhythm. During a training session, he paired a nervous new hire with Tessa Rowan, who'd started smiling more since North Oak's changes. "Watch how she talks to the regulars," Jasper told the kid. "She remembers their orders, asks about their day. That's what keeps them coming back." The new hire nodded, scribbling notes, and Jasper felt something shift, a sense that he wasn't just a waiter anymore. Wyatt sat in on one of Jasper's sessions, watching from the back. The facilitator was good, but Jasper was better, cutting through corporate jargon with plain truth. "It's not about the menu," Jasper said. "It's about the people eating the food." Wyatt's chest tightened. His father would have said the same thing. The North Oak Starlight Diner glowed softly under the late afternoon sun, its neon sign humming steadily for the first time in weeks. Wyatt Langston pushed through the door, the familiar buzz of the entry bell blending with the clink of plates and the low murmur of conversation. It was the dinner rush, but the air felt different, less frantic, more alive. The scent of grilled onions and fresh coffee mingled without the acrid edge of burnt toast. The table where Wyatt had sat in disguise a month ago was spotless. No ketchup smears, the jukebox now a gentle hum of classic rock. He took the same corner booth, not announcing himself, just watching. This was his father's diner, his father's dream, and for the first time in years, it felt like it might be his two. Tessa Rowan moved through the dining room, a headset clipped to her apron, organizing to-go orders with a clipboard. Her smile wasn't forced anymore, though her eyes still carried the weight of long shifts. Jasper Vale was at the counter, laughing with a regular over a coffee refill, his denim jacket swapped for a clean Starlight polo, a subtle nod to his new role. The rhythm of the place was smoother, not perfect, but deliberate, like a machine finely tuned. Wyatt leaned back, the vinyl booth creaking softly, and let the scene sink in. Jasper spotted him and slid into the opposite seat without asking. "Checking up on us?" he said, one eyebrow raised, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "No," Wyatt said, his voice quiet. "Just needed to see it again." Jasper glanced at the floor, where a new hire was chatting with a customer, mimicking Tessa's easy warmth. "Feels different," Jasper said. It is, Wyatt replied. Not because of me, because you set the example. Jasper looked down, his fingers tracing the edge of the table. You ever think about shutting it down? Wyatt nodded, his eyes distant. When I saw how far we drifted, yeah. But then I saw you pay for that family's meal like it was nothing. That's when I knew we had something worth fighting for. Jasper didn't respond, just nodded, his gaze steady. The door opened, and a young couple walked in, holding hands. The hostess, Chloe, now more attentive, greeted them with a smile that felt genuine. Wyatt stood, his chair scraping softly. You're going to keep building this, he said. Even after I step back, Jasper raised an eyebrow. You stepping back already? Not yet, Wyatt said. But eventually. I'm not the glue here. People like you, Tessa, Morris, Finn they are. Jasper leaned forward. If you ever forget that again, I won't. They shook hands, no ceremony, no applause. Wyatt stepped outside, the air cool. Against his skin, the sun dipped behind the strip mall, casting long shadows across the asphalt, the smell of fresh bread mixing with motor oil. He stood by his car, watching the light shift. It was real, imperfect, alive, back at headquarters. That night, Wyatt sat at his father's old desk, the wood worn smooth from decades of use. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a laminated menu, yellowed at the edges. On the back, in faded marker, were his father's words, "People before product." Wyatt stared at them, his chest tight. He'd almost lost that truth, buried it, under reports and excuses. But Jasper's quiet act, Tessa's grit, Maris's steady hand, Finn's blunt honesty, they brought it back. He made a call. Get Jasper on the line, he said. Tell him we're building something new. The X platform had quieted, the viral posts fading as customers shared stories of better service, a free coffee here, a kind word there. But Wyatt knew the work wasn't done. A competitor, Burger Blitz, had just launched a sleek app, pulling customers with promises of speed and customization. Starlight couldn't match that yet, but it could offer something else. Heart. Wyatt wasn't naive. Pushback from Nolan's old allies lingered, and the labor market was still brutal. But for the first time, he felt like they were moving forward, not just holding on. This story of Starlight Diner is more than a tale of a struggling business. It's a testament to the human spirit. Jasper Vale's simple act of paying for a family's meal wasn't just kindness. It was a reminder that small gestures can ripple, inspiring change in a system that's lost its way. Wyatt Langston's journey from a detached CEO to a leader who listens shows that true leadership isn't about titles or power. It's about seeing people, not just profits. The lesson here is clear. Businesses thrive when they prioritize humanity, when they value the Maurices, Tessas, and Finns who keep the lights on. In a world of viral posts and fleeting trends, Starlight's story reminds us that compassion endures, that a single act can spark a movement. We all have a Jasper in our lives, someone who does the right thing when no one's watching. Find them, lift them up, and build something better together. If this story moved you, there's more. It came from Legacy Stories is dedicated to sharing tales of resilience, kindness, and transformation. Real people making a difference in a noisy world. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube or follow us on X to catch the next story that might just change how you see the world. Don't miss out. Join the Legacy Stories community today.